my whole goal when solar is over is just to help girls in the sales space, because I think it's so important. If you guys saw my post today, I just first started my first client that I'm coaching in the Windows space, and she has closed like every deal she sat, and we've had one coaching session.
I think the reason that I got so good so fast was my mindset coming in. You know, I saw Melissa on Instagram and chatted with her, asked her what she did, showed me her paycheck, the whole nine, right? I was like, okay, if you're telling me I go knock doors, I can make that money. In my mind, I was like, okay, if somebody else can do this, why would I not be able to do that, right?
Believe me, have somebody knocking at the door. Who's that? What? Some of the best door knockers in the world just showing up, hopping by, that happen to live in Colorado. What's up, Melissa Romiza and Kayla Mooney?
Hi, on, Jeff.
Oh, man, I really appreciate you being on here. Melissa, I've been trying to get you on for like 6 months. I think last time we were trying to talk and get you on here was like around SolarCon time. I was like, you know what? We were pushing it off, and then the summertime came around. And I was like, all right, you know what? I'm not going to bother Melissa for the summertime because I know how she is on the summer. It's like, do not. I'm sorry, I'm busy. It's summertime. I'm busy. Can't do it. I'm sure, Kayla, you're the same way. You guys just crushing the summer. How was it?
Oh, it's been busy. We've been building, growing, selling. Kayla's been absolutely crushing it. She has surpassed me the last 2 months in sales.
Yeah, it's been a crazy summer, that's for sure.
What? You're beating Melissa at the doors? Is that what I just heard?
Yeah, I mean, that happened. Yeah, it's been awesome. We kind of switched over to a blitz model for a little bit, and that's really helped us progress with sales.
So I know that I know you guys really well, and you guys are amazing at what you do, but not everybody watching knows. So Melissa has been door knocking for a couple of years, and Kayla is kind of the protege almost, right? Since the last year. Can you tell the audience a little bit about, Melissa, your time knocking, and then how Kayla came to start working with you?
Yeah. It's September. So it'll be 8 years that I've been in the door-to-door space. So I am coming up very close to 8 years. Started knocking doors as a setter with a very, very big company, and then moved my way up to being a closer. And then after being there for a bit, I went to a different company, and that's actually where me and Kayla met. We actually met online. So that's a whole other story, but she kept seeing my Instagram posts of me selling, and she was like, hey, are you guys hiring? And at first I was like, I don't think this girl knows what it takes to door knock, because it takes a very specific kind of individual that can just hear the word no and get rejected all day and like wake up like none of it happened the next morning. And then, Kayla came in. She started, I think it's been almost 3 years now, right?
Yeah. It's coming up on 3 years, and it happened very fast.
Yeah, and Kayla came in swinging right away. So came in as a setter. I think her first month she got 10 deals closed, and like we were like, we need to turn this girl into a setter manager, and she was like, no, I want to close deals. And we were like, okay, like we'll let you close deals. And she came in, crushed the first year, and then that second year, which was last year, was the year me and her both. I'd hit a golden door the year she came in, and then we both hit golden doors last year. Now she helps lead my office here in Colorado, and she started actually onboarding her own dealers at this point. So she's been crushing it, so she's selling, and she kind of can like be the sales rabbit, which is nice. And now I've kind of built an influence in the door-to-door space. So it's been easier for me to recruit people in. And then I just kind of toss them at Kayla, and I'm like, hey, train them, take care of them, I'll get them through the door. And then you kind of like handle the rest. And it's been like a really nice handoff for the past year.
Did you let her skip straight from doors to closing?
No, she's set, but she came in. So like, we've always had a metric that if you get 10 deals in 60 days, that's when we're like, okay, you can move into closing. For us, we didn't even want her to move to closing. We're like, we need her to be a setter manager because she hit 10 deals for her first 30 days. Yeah. So we were like, yo, like train the setters. Like if we can get everybody doing this, like we're good. And she's like, no, I want to close. And we're like, all right, like we're never going to tell anybody no, or like, this is the position you have to have. So we're like, okay. So we supported her in closing deals, but she moved from setter to closer, like very fast, way faster than I did. I went from setting to closing. It took me 6 months. It took her like 30 days, which is insane.
Whenever you have a killer that comes straight in and just starts crushing it, number one is you want them to keep setting good appointments. And number two is you're like, damn, teach them. But there's two types of people. There's one type of person that wants to go to closing and one type that wants to manage people. So it's always sketchy when you're like, oh, they want to go to closing, because then you have that vacuum of appointments, super high quality appointments that disappear. And you're like, all right, let's see how we do here. But it's always a bit scary bringing your star door knocker straight to closing in 30 days.
Yeah. Yeah. And she
Kayla,
went from just from selling her own appointments to taking people's appointments like 40 days later. It was crazy.
I love that. I want to hear more about that, Kayla. You know, for a lot of setters out there, door knockers out there, they have a big choice sometimes. Is like, do they keep door knocking, become a manager, or they become a closer? And sounds like you were individually deciding that you wanted to be a closer, and you kind of everybody else was telling you to stay as a setter. What was it in you that was like, you know what, I love you all, appreciate it, but no, I want to be a closer? What was that in you?
Well, the potential, right? I mean, obviously I had some goals coming in here. On the other hand, I shadowed Melissa as often as I could, and I watched her close. And to me, like, if you just need to memorize something and learn the skills and learn the techniques and work really hard, I was like, there's no reason in my mind that I couldn't do that if somebody else can. All I need to do is learn. And so for me, like, yeah, okay, I also like to do things that push me to grow. And yeah, I could stay at setting, you know, but at that point I was like, I'm obviously good at this. Like, what's the next step? And for me, it's always moving on to that next step, getting better. And that's what it was in the industry was, you know, setting, closing, managing, leading a team, becoming, you know, regional, becoming VP. And those are like the steps to continuously get better at your craft. Right. So that was for me. I was like, I don't want to stay here. Not that setters are anything less. I think setters are the bloodline, right? But for me, learning a new skill and having more financial potential, that's where it was at for me.
That must be tough, you know, Melissa, when you're hiring in and you're bringing in people, and you know you need a right ratio of closers to setters, right? Like you have to have the right balance, or it just doesn't work. And you know, like everybody could be great closers, but you can't have everybody be closers, right? Like, and you know, people like Kayla who were superstar setters that are like, hey, you keep doing that, we already have our closers. How do you kind of deal with that dilemma? You know, I'm sure Kayla's one dilemma, and there's like, you know, dozens of more after that. But how do you kind of deal with that? Trying to making sure you put them for your business, but also for what they're good at.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's like a couple different things. I think this past year, like getting a lot of setters in has been tough. And that's why we adopted a blitz model. And then we started getting creative with that. So the reason we brought them in is one, like we have really great closers. Like obviously we have great closers. We've got myself, we've got Kayla, we've got some really good Golden Door Award winners in our office. But you're right. You do need setters. And like, you also want to keep around those closers, right? Like, hey, I've got appointments for you. Like, don't go anywhere. And that's why we started doing this blitz model. So one, like I always wanted to help people and coach people, but my focus has always been the team. And it's like, hey, if coaching you is going to take me away from my team, I'm sorry, but I can't do it. And it wasn't until this year that it clicked in my head that I could coach people. They don't necessarily have to be a part of my team. They just got to come be a part of it for like 2 weeks. And if they want to stay, they can stay. And if they don't, they don't. No worries. And then we get an influx of appointments. And that allowed me, one, to keep my closers full. But that's been one of our biggest things is like, yeah, you do need to have the right amount of setters. You do need to have the right amount of closers. But I think you can have a lot of closers. You just need to teach them from the get-go to be self-sustainable and that we don't ever rely on setters' appointments to eat. And like, I show my guys that all the time. Like after this, I'm going to a self-gen. I knocked the door. I got the appointment. I'm going to sell it. It wasn't handed to me by a setter. And teaching your people to be self-sustainable, because I think the biggest thing we're seeing now is everyone's getting super spoiled and spoon-fed. And they're like, I'm only going to come to your company if you give me 5 appointments a week or whatever. And it's like,
100%.
See you later. Like, good luck. Go to Sunrun or go to one of these big companies that will feed you the appointments. That's earned and not given where we're from. And if you're not willing to earn it, then I don't need you on my team. And we've just always held that standard. Like that is a standard that has never, ever dropped since I've ran teams. And I think Kayla understands that too. Like whenever we bring people in, you know, we can bring them into a blitz and like, there's a metric. If you do this metric, yes, you get appointments. If you can't hit that metric, I'm sorry, but you're not going to get appointments. And that's super important. But I think getting creative right now more than ever, if you have strong closers, is going to be so important in the space, whether that's blitz models or you're using a call center or whatever. And then for us, getting all that data from the blitz, from the door knocking, and then repurposing that data to keep appointments flowing when the blitzes aren't happening.
Well,
when you started
go ahead, Josh,
pumping that self-gen thing, was that a new thing, or from day one were all your closers required to do a certain level of self-gen? It's always easy to teach them, but it's very difficult to go backwards, right? If you have this team of closers, they've never self-gen before, or they came to appointment setting, then work their way up to just take appointments. And then you come in with the self-gen thing. They're like, oh, I have to self-gen now. So you went from day one self-gen if you want to be a closer. Is there a certain standard, like a certain amount of self-gens?
So you come in as a setter, you have to get 10 deals in 60 days, and then you can move to closing. And then once you go to self-gen, you got to self-gen 10 deals in 60 days to be allowed to get some appointments. But if your closing ratio is low or your cancellation rate is high, we're taking appointments from you because you're ultimately screwing over the setter. And we put setters before closers always. Like that, like Kayla said, it's the lifeblood of an organization. And if the setters aren't going to get paid, they're not going to stay. So that's just always been a thing for us, is like, you will never earn appointments if you can't self-gen your own. That's the way I was raised in the door-to-door space, and that's how I raise my door knockers, is the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. And then what we always used to do as well is when we had when we had an all-star that came in and like within the first week or two, they just start blowing records out of the door. It's like, okay, I want them trained, but I also want them to close. So we would always do a hybrid model. They'd come to us and say, I want to close. We'd say, look, this is what you're going to do for the next 30 days. You're going to train these two people to get somewhere close to what you're doing, while we're also going to allow you to self-gen. If you're able to do that for 30 days with them and train them up, meaning we're sort of filling that vacuum that they're going to create when they go to close, then we're going to enable you to self-gen full time. And then after that, you're going to start taking appointments. So like step by step. Whereas what I've seen a lot of people do is they see that badass door knocker. They know they're going to be good at closing. They immediately rip them out, or even worse, put them into a management position immediately. And they have this big vacuum. Let's say you have a team of 10 or 20 door knockers and they were doing 20%, 30% of the entire bloody volume. They rip them out because they think they're going to be a good manager or closer. And then their appointment volume drops. Not only does this new person not have any appointments to close, but all your other closers now, volume of appointments drops. So you sort of have to systematically take it. And self-gen has always been the way to do that, because it enables also, by the way, for them to prove it. Because if they don't, well, go back to the doors for a bit and maybe we'll try again in a month or two.
Yeah. And they always make more off self-gens too. So it's like, oh, you need money? You need money bad? You shouldn't be taking setters appointments. No one should ever take appointments out of desperation. But that's always a tough thing too, right? Like everybody thinks their top salesperson should be their leader. It took a very long time for Kayla to earn her way into leadership. Like she wasn't handed a leadership position until Kayla, like almost 2 years in door-to-door till we came over to Glide. That's when you actually took a leadership position. And at that point, I've been working pretty closely with Kayla. Like Kayla has been the person, like to this day, like if she's struggling, she still shadows. She is still constantly learning. And I think it's so important. But like a model that we've always set to is like, oh, you need to you said like, take this closer and they have to train this many setters. Like everybody's training everybody if they're good, whether it's a good closer or a great setter. Those are the only people our guys should be going out with anyway. So that's already implemented from the get-go. It's not when they're moving to closing. It's far before that. Like, I think that process should happen sooner rather than even like a month isn't sometimes enough, because everybody's runway is so different. So you don't really know like what it's going to take. Like I could hand Kayla 2 reps and she's great at this job now, but like I could hand her 2 people on our team that are struggling and we know that their runway is going to be longer and she might not see the results that we would expect in 30 days. However, if I hand her 2 other individuals, we know that their runway is this big and they're going to crush it after a week. So it really just comes down to the person that you're teaching, because everybody's learning curve is different.
So, Kayla, that means that you are managing your setting and closing at this moment?
Yes, that's what I'm doing currently. I try to make sure that I self-gen at least a quarter of my deals. One, like she said, I get paid more off of that, so it's security for myself. But on the other hand, like leading from the front. And I think it's one of the reasons why I stick with Melissa, and I wanted to learn from her, because what I've learned is that you need to lead from the front. And that's, I think, comes down to not only self-genning, but going out there and knocking with the guys to help them, because I think that if I'm out there by myself, which I'll still go out, but I think that somebody should be on the door with me, because they could pick something up, even if it's one little thing that helps them progress. And like I'll record myself. I'll have the guys record themselves and send it to me, just so like even if I can't be out there, then I'm helping them. When somebody hits me up and they're like, hey, like I'm having a tough day, like I'm gonna get out there with them. I'm gonna go pick them up, meet them in Hood, whatever that is, because if you're asking these guys to go do something and you're not willing to do it yourself, it's going to look really bad and they're going to leave you. You know, and I've taught before. I was a teacher. I was lead sous chef, and ultimately when I was in that position, I had to earn my way up, and I had chefs that would go out there and just bark orders at you. And I was like, you know, screw that. Like, he's not even willing. He's just sitting in his desk. And I had no respect. There was no influence to be like, I want to be like that guy, you know. But I've also worked for chefs that were out there busting it out in the middle of a rush. And I'm like, dude, this guy's a beast. Like, he'll get into the nitty gritty with us. And I think that also stems down to like culture as well, because they feel like you actually care about them, you know. And if they hit you up and they're like, yeah, I'm having a tough day, and you know, you can motivate them. That's great. But getting out on the doors and showing them like, oh, it's not that bad. It's really not that hard. It's you're in your head. So leading from the front is really, for me, one of the biggest things. And that's why I've been consistent. Like you guys were saying, what you'll see is they'll get into, you know, manager positions, and then they have these other responsibilities and their volume will drop. That for me is like a non-negotiable. I will not allow that to happen, because when I have goals for myself, but if I sit there and produce 4 deals a month and then I have these new setters that come in, they're going to look up to me immediately and be like, oh, you've been in door to door. And that's amazing. 4 deals. And then they're going to go out and do 1 or 2 and think that's great. So I have to keep that, you know, and that takes leading from the front.
Yeah, I was going to ask you.
I used to work at a expo at a super high volume restaurant, and I remember whenever it started getting absolutely wild, the head chef would jump to the pocket back of house. I jump to the pocket front of house and just start barking orders, because no one else back of house could handle it. He's like, all right, I'm getting back out here. Boom, for like an hour and a half, would just rinse everybody, tell them exactly what to do, and everyone respected him. Yeah, that's good. Never put 2 and 2 together there. Lots of similarities though with the industries. I like it.
When people get inspired, you know, if you're out there and you're on the doors, we have our group chat. And so like we try to post pictures of us going out when we're out there together. And if somebody's sitting at home and they're just, you know, chilling on their couch, on their phone, whatever they're doing, and they see all of us out as leaders, they see Melissa posting pictures with a rep. They see me, they see Cass, they see everyone like posting pictures. They're like, damn, like, what am I doing? Right. And so if we're not out there, they're like, well, the leaders are now. So like, why do I have to do it? You know, and I want to show them how to get where I am. And by doing that, like, you got to be out in the field. You have to be like supporting these guys from the front. So,
you know, not only that, I love that you were a sous chef and, you know, former teacher. Would you say that you're shy or introverted at all by chance, Kayla?
Sometimes. I would say sometimes, but like most of the time, no. Like most of the time you can't get me to stop talking. like I love going out and talking to people, meeting people, putting, you know, events together, things like that. I'm always on the go. I'm very high energy, and it's hard for me to like sit down, but like I'll get home after a 12-hour day of sitting through appointments and knocking and running Zooms. And then I get home and I'm like still having this full-blown conversation till 2 a.m. I'm like, I gotta go to sleep, you know. But there are times for sure my social battery does run out, right? I think all of us.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want to be around anyone. And that's when I go to the mountains. I'm like, I'm out.
I just like the mountains.
Yeah.
That's cool. Awesome. What else you like to do?
What was that?
What else you like to do?
I like to travel, eat good food. I'm obviously a foodie. So go try new restaurants, like coffee shops, longboard, workout, you know, self-development, a lot of things that help me like feel better that I'm progressing in myself.
Sounds like you don't do it during the summertime because you crushed it for the last 2 months. It sounds like. What are you doing? What are you doing that you feel like you're on a roll and that you're actually beating a monster like Melissa that you get to work with every day? What are you doing that you feel like? Are you doing anything different, or you just feel like this is just now you get everything combined into what you are?
Honestly, it's really interesting because I sat down and was, you know, self-reflecting on that recently, and I've actually slowed down. I think that truly I've progressed my skill set and my knowledge and the ability to train other people to go out as well. But my closing ratio is much higher. What's that?
Got you. You're replicating yourself, so you don't have to do as much now, right?
Yeah, and also like my skill set, I have a much higher closing ratio. As long as
Nice.
it's qualified, like most of the time it'll sell. So I think the amount of time that I did obsess and work 12-hour shifts for 3 months straight, like that time and energy that I put into getting better has got it. So like, yeah, I actually have more of a work-life balance now than I did a year ago. And I had my biggest month 2 months ago of 23 deals. But yet, like I felt like I worked less than I did, So that's actually been really nice.
How are you balancing everything, Melissa? Like obviously, being a Golden Door Award winner, like both of you are, like eventually you're starting building your teams and you're recruiting and you're managing and you just run out of time to do, closing or even knocking on doors. How is your balance? Are you happy with your balance today? Do you feel like you need to shift it anyways? How are you feeling today?
I mean, I think that over the last couple of years, like I've always promoted for everybody on my team to have a work-life balance. Like I think it's important. We all schedule our days off. We all schedule our time off. We're all very open about when we're taking days off. Like I have dinner with a friend tonight. I have dinner with a friend tomorrow night, and I still make time to manage all my teams that I have underneath me and my reps and show up to the meetings.
And make time for the podcast today.
Make time for the podcast. It all comes down to like planning, right? Like proper planning, which a lot of people don't do. So that's why I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, I have no time for anything. It's like, well, have you actually sat down and like figured out your calendar? Because Kayla, I counted your days off over the summer and you had 46 days off, but you still produced over 70 deals this summer. So like she had days where she went out boating and went out with her girlfriend and like did things. But then when she was at work, she was at work, and it wasn't she was at work thinking about all these other things. When she was at work, she was at work. And when she was off, she was off. She wouldn't text us back. She wouldn't answer the leadership chat because she would disconnect. And I think that's a big thing that other people in the industry need to learn how to do, which is setting boundaries, which I'm awful at. I will text somebody at 11 o'clock at night. Do not take my advice, but like people like Kayla and Cass, they've done really good about setting boundaries. Like I'll ask Cass a question about work at 10 at night. And she's like, not answering it till tomorrow. And I'm like, damn, like I just need your feedback for a second, but I am just as obsessed with this, like with this job than anything else. That doesn't necessarily feel like work. And I feel like for the last couple of years, I've always had to be the sales rep. I've always had to be the one selling. And that was the only way I was ever going to survive. And now I'm in such a nice position with Glide where like I get to sell, I get to recruit, I get to manage multiple teams and still live a life that feels balanced for me because like I did the imbalance. I've done the imbalance. Like I said, it's 8 years in this space. And not a lot of people have been here for 8 years because the imbalance is tough and the boundaries are tough and they don't know how to handle them. So like if you want to last, you need to set boundaries and you need to find balance and you need to schedule time out, schedule time with your family, schedule time for vacations. Like I'm going to Fiji next year and I'm going to Hawaii next year. Like I already have that planned for next year. Like that is already planned, most people don't have next week planned. And I think that's huge.
How about your seasons? Is that also balanced or you have an off season? Is there any off season throughout the year?
Not for us.
Not even in Colorado when it's a foot of snow and there's no weeks of that? That's the best time.
Feel bad. You go like this hard enough to your nose right before you get to the door and you're like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'll be super quick. I can just step in right there. Actually, I'll just explain what I'm doing, wipe my feet and step in.
It's a reason to come in the house.
Yeah, I'll be super quick. I don't want to let your heat out. I can just step in right there and explain what I'm doing. And it's like the winter is like, it's been for us pretty much our biggest months because there is no one out here. Everybody sends their pest teams here in the summer. Everybody sends their alarm teams here in the summer. Everybody brings their freaking fiber teams here now. Everybody is here. You go into a neighborhood and like, if you don't see 6 people, it's sketchy. You think somebody just got shot. So you're like, I'm probably not in a good spot. I should probably go to where the 6 guys are. But in the wintertime, that's when I've had my biggest months in solar. My biggest month I signed 42 was in February, a 28-day month. And it was negative degree temperatures. And those are my biggest months. And now adopting the splits model, when times do get cold, like in the winter, we do plan to go to like Texas and Florida and some warmer areas. Because with our last company, it was like you either sell in Colorado or Oregon or like bust. And like that, like I think with how much the industry has changed and evolved, that like you need to be able to go where the offers are because there are great offers in different places in the country and capitalize on them. And that is exactly what we're doing.
Kayla, you mentioned you post in the group chats whenever you guys go out there and inspires like the team. Do you also post publicly for recruitment or whatever?
Yes.
I know, Melissa, you do content, right?
Yeah, I actually just talked to a content guy today and I'm getting back on hiring somebody, but I've mostly been like handling my own content for the last couple months and I've been getting collaborated with so much that I don't really need to post as much as I used to, because I get like 2 or 3 collaboration posts, which is like 2 or 3 free posts, and then I post one. So I definitely am big on social media, though. It's where I get all my recruits. All my recruiting is 100% social media.
Yeah, you jumping on as well, Kayla?
Honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of being on social media, but I know it's a tool. So I have started utilizing it. I saw how it helped Melissa grow the company, and I have started implementing more social media. I just forget to make content, but I do try to post my sales pretty consistently. And I did hire somebody for 2 months, and then I'm looking at hiring somebody. He actually worked with Sam Taggart for a while. He's a little bit higher level. And so that's something that I know I need to start utilizing a little more. And I've done a little bit more research on how to build a brand and, how to track your KPIs and why to use those tools. So you should be seeing some more in the next 2 months.
Nice. Melissa, do you find that your content sort of unlocks untapped female talent that traditionally would look at a solar bro industry and not think it was for them, but then all of a sudden someone like Kayla comes through and says, screw you, I'm gonna just beat all the guys' records? Do you find that helps?
I mean, yeah, 100% it helps. It helps for girls to see it's possible, right? Like that was my biggest reason I started. Like when I started posting, it wasn't to recruit. Like, and I think everyone has it so backwards. They're like, oh, you on social media? I was like, no, dude, I did it for accountability. like when I first started posting my sales, it was solely for accountability. And then I got to a point where I was like, if people don't see my face every day, they think I'm a loser. Like I just had this thing in my head that I was like, if I'm not selling, people think I'm a loser, and they think I can't sell, and they don't think I'm the best. And I know I'm the best, and I know I'm great, and I'm going to show everybody I'm great. But it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to post all this stuff to recruit. Like that was never my intention. But now, like I've built that audience where now recruiting is easy because people have seen I've done it. Like I'm not just saying I've done these things. Like people have seen me on stage. I've spoken at SolarCon. I've spoken at Door to Door Con. I've spoken at the Setter Closer Tour. I've won the Solar Objections. I've won Knock Star of the Year. I've won the Golden Door. I've won the Megawatt Award. Like I've gone after everything, and I've gone like full force at it. And I think it's super important, yes, to the girls. Is that the main reason I'm posting? No, it's solely just to show people that I am who I say I am. And I get recruits from I'm authentic, like I'm real. Like I don't put on a fake voice when you hear me on my videos versus like here. Like if you talk to me in person, this is exactly how I'm going to talk to you. It's not a fake voice. It's not a fake anything. I try to be as real and authentic as possible. But yeah, like my whole goal when solar is over is just to help girls in the sales space, because I think it's so important. If you guys saw my post today, I just first started my first client that I'm coaching in the Windows space, and she has closed like every deal she sat, and we've had one coaching session. And like that to me fires me up. That is incredible. Like she's not part of my team. Her success equals nothing for me. It's no overrides, but it's just the fact that cool. I've been the sales rabbit. I've done the sales. Now, can I teach it? Can I teach it to another industry? And it's teaching me, yes, I can. It doesn't have to be solar, because the things that I've learned and the things I can teach are valuable to many different spaces.
Oh, no, sure. You're 100% a rock star. And speaking of SolarCon, you also won the League of Influencers competition. You got that razor. How's that razor doing today? What are you doing with that? I need to take a selfie with it again or something.
Yeah, we got a bunch of pictures, actually. We should send them over to you. We took it out.
That was crazy.
It's a good time. Kayla knows. Yeah. Kayla was with me the first time we took it out.
Oh, my God. How was that, Kayla?
It was sweet. Honestly, it was a lot of fun. People got a little crazy on it.
Stay safe.
Check it out. Something got damaged or something. Maybe I shouldn't.
It got flipped and the plastics got busted, but there's new plastics coming in. Brandon actually just ordered them a year later, but it's still drivable. Like nothing's wrong. It was like it cracked the back plastics, but yeah, we have the video of the guys flipping it.
Guys are crazy. They have no fear. Like,
well, it's a razor. It's got roll bars and stuff, right?
Oh, it's made for that.
And the seats eject. We found out. Flip. Literally, like their two bodies went pew outside of the razor. So, and I'm running after the razor. Both the guys' girlfriends are running to be like, "Are they okay?" And I'm like, "Is the razor
bike?"
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
And they probably go straight to the razor and say, "Is it okay?"
Oh, that's what I did. Brandon's girlfriend ran for him. Someone else ran for Dan, and I ran
Oh
Crazy.
shit!
Those things are fast. Those things are actually
Real.
very fast.
We got up to like 70.
Well, the snowboard I won that year goes pretty fast if you just rip it down a hill, good plow. So,
Was it Sean White?
No, he second,
no.
third, and fourth, and fifth place got a surfboard.
Not a razor. Say that. Just didn't get a razor.
Ease.
Can't really compare to that.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you guys aren't feeling any of the pains of the solar industry. Is there anything you guys are doing that's kind of keeping you above the waves or whatever it is? Are you doing any other energy efficiency? I know Colorado is like one of the top states in energy efficiency rebates through the state and like heat pumps, and Josh can tell you all about it also. Are you guys utilizing that, or are you still just straight hustling solar?
No, we sell way more than solar now, which is awesome. Big reason we actually came over to Glide was that they do like tax prep for homeowners, and they do energy efficiency, insulation, attic sealant, attic fans, perfect power boxes, things for the HVAC now that they're adding. And I wouldn't say like we didn't feel the pain of what's happened this last year. I think that we've just pivoted really well, and for a while like we didn't know what the hell to do, and the Blitz model has been such a saving grace for us to like really make sure that production stays good for the company and for ourselves, right? Like keep ourselves up. But like, believe me, like we felt the pain. It's just like we didn't settle to be like, well, the ship's going down, like time to jump up. We were like, nope, we're bailing out the water and we're gonna figure it out, and we're gonna get a sump pump and figure it out. But that's like exactly what we had to do. It wasn't that we didn't feel the pain. Like I don't want anybody that watches this to think we didn't feel the pain. We felt it. Believe me, interest rates going up, dealer fees going up, just like so like seeing everybody go out of business, like your conviction, your belief, like that, it shook us a little bit. But we still know that we're putting homeowners in a better situation. And all we have to do is pivot and make some changes and adjustments, and everything's going to be fine. But for the people that aren't pivoting, aren't making changes, aren't making adjustments, aren't adding offers to the table, they are going to sink. Promise you that.
For me too, I feel like obviously we can say it every time, but 90% of this is mental. And for me, I heard, shit's going this way and things are going to change. And for me, I'm like, I still, my buddy is over here slinging 20 a month. I'm like, so you're going to follow that mindset. I'm going to follow this mindset, because if I sit there and I'm like, yeah, things change, but like things change is the only thing that's promised. Like to be scared of that and to follow that negative mindset of, oh, the industry, this or, and for me, I'm like, it's all mindset. Yes, things are changing. I'm not going to say that we haven't pivoted in some sense, but I think a lot of it is mindset, because people hear, oh, things are changing, and they get really scared and they want that out. They're like, what's the next move? And for me, I'm like, dude, people are still out here slinging 20 a month. I just did 23 a month. Nothing's changing for me, right? Like we're still producing. You have to make sure that your guys, all the setters too, they're hearing things online, they're seeing things online, that you take that mindset to them, and you're like, showing them. A lot of it, I think, truly is your belief. And for me, I believe that we can make it happen no matter what happens in the industry. Like, yeah, learn.
If you're in this game long enough, I think you sort of have a different mindset that the results that you should get shouldn't ever change other than going up, but how you get those results are constantly evolving. Mm-hmm. So 11 years ago when I started in solar, even 5 years ago, I was saying fucking totally different shit, doing totally different strategies, because the market changes. So if you apply what you hit a gold mine with for 6 months, a few years later, and then you're like, oh, it's not working, that must mean the industry's down. And no, it's because the market changes, things change, and you just have to adapt. But the results that you get stay the same. Like, for example, Christmas, December. People always say, so Josh, like, how much of a drop in results should I expect in December? My response is always, if you want to get the same results you got in December that you did in July, you just have to do different things and work harder in this. It's up to you. My installers will take a break. Literally, they'll move to Bali, this is in Australia, for 2 weeks. So I can't install the jobs because I literally don't have guys. But if you want to knock more, if you want to make more calls, you can decide to get the same results. So it's like, do you let the market change your results, or do you do what you want to the market to maintain your results? And again, if you're in the industry long enough, you actually start seeing that you have to change shit constantly, and it becomes more aware. But if you've only been in it for a year or two and you've only tried one strategy, it feels very uncomfortable, right? And then so it's much easier to blame the market as opposed to going, nah, screw that. I'm going to figure out something else to maintain or improve my results when everyone else is dying. It's like, a few different ways of looking at it, I think.
Yeah, and kind of to point out something you said on there was somebody came to you and asked what expectations that they should have. That's their belief. What expectations should I have in my mind based on what other people believe about the market or the month or the weather? Yeah. And like, if you can set your expectations high and your goals high and your beliefs and you can go out there and make it happen, like, I feel like that's huge, because if you're telling your guys, same thing, that guy came to you and was like, what should I expect? That's your job to keep that mindset high, to give that to them so they can maintain that. And truly, like, yeah, you look at Colorado and it's freezing in the winter, you'd probably expect to have a slower month, but actually it's the opposite. So I think really it comes down to the belief too, and everything's a wave. I think truly, like, everything has that low and then the high, and I think just like the stock market, solar's the same way. Like I've seen kind of like a little bit of a wave, and it's all just energy and mindset. Yes, things will change, interest rates, but it's like solar makes sense. It's 3% of the market, maybe 4 is penetrated right now. And solar makes sense. It's not going to stop making sense because it's cold outside. I think that's huge. Kind of going back to the expectation thing.
I think there's a term. What's that term? Isn't there a term for this in solar? I wonder why the fuck.
Speaking of
5%,
trying
5% market penetration versus 20, 30, 40% elsewhere. More utility rate increase requests submitted by utility companies in the past 12 months than ever in human history before 1980 stock market crash, 2008 financial global crisis, ever in human history. More utility rate increase requests. How on God's green earth are you going to look at this market and say, oh, it's just going down, it's done?
Yeah.
Absolutely wild.
We're going to let you guys go. I wanted to ask you one more question, because I know, Melissa, you're talking about the Blitz model. Speaking of trying new things, that's obviously, a go-to for you guys right now. How long have you been doing it? Have you seen the pros and cons to it? The investment into believing people before they actually go and do it? Do you choose the right people? Kind of what's your mindset behind the whole Blitz, and how's it going for you?
We ran 2 of our own blitzes, both in Colorado. The first one was insane. Like, we did not expect to do the numbers that we did. We did like 70 sales in like 12 days with like not a lot of people.
Wow, let's go, man.
And then we're like, cool, let's ramp up the second one. And we've always had one rule for our blitzes.
Where was that? I'm sorry, I missed it. Where was that?
That was here in Colorado.
Oh, okay, you just blitzed it right there in another city that's a little further away, or
literally like 10 minutes.
Just right there.
Okay. Like 15, like we can go local. Spit on it. We knocked on. But the first time we did it, it wasn't a huge investment because I have 2 properties. So like we filled up both of my houses, and then we just had to get like one smaller Airbnb. It was like $4,000. So not a massive investment. And like everybody that gets on board, it gets a free shirt. So like I didn't have to pay for their shirt, and like I don't have to pay for their door knocking. Like I didn't really have to pay for much for the first one besides like their food and stocking the office and then the house. The second blitz, we spent a little bit more money because we're like, let's ramp this shit up. And actually the results were lower. So for this third blitz, what we're doing, so we have a blitz coming up in about 3 weeks in Texas. We did it by invite only. So like the
second one, I'm sorry to cut you off. Second one was also local, or you try that different?
Yep, it was.
Okay, so this is your first one. Okay, so this is your first one. You're going out of town.
Yeah, going out of state. And we've like ran other ones with other dealers that have done it. We ran the Florida blitz, which I don't really count as a blitz because we didn't really have structure then. And then this one we did it by invite only. So we called people that have either come on our blitzes before that have that we trust for one, but 2 they've excelled. They've done well. And we didn't market it at all. The first 2 blitzes we marketed like crazy. Like, here, fill out this drop form. We'll give you a call. I interviewed every single person. I didn't let anybody else interview them besides me. And then for this one, it was invite only. So like we know what to expect, and you need to inspect what you do expect. And we have we know these people. We've worked side by side with them for a very, very long time. People from past companies, people from blitzes, people that just like had to leave the solar space but are still down to blitz. Like it's just such a good model to have, because some people don't want to be in a year-round team, but they do want to get a little burst of money, and they get an itch to knock doors, and then they're like, fuck, I forgot that this shit sucks. And you're like, cool, thanks for coming for 2 weeks. We'll hit you up in 3 months once you forget that feeling, like, but it's such a great model. And obviously this blitz is our biggest investment because I have a team that's here locally. So like we were just adding people to our local team. So I had to go house them. So I got 2 houses for this. We're probably looking at like a $10K investment for this, but like I have total faith that we're going to have no problem getting that back, because everybody that we're bringing, we have worked with before. There are no noobs. I think there's one new guy that our owner has coming. Besides that, like I have worked with every single person that is on this 36-man blitz. So like hitting, our goal is to hit 500 kilowatts to a megawatt in those 2 weeks.
So if you're that one noob watching, you better be ready to go, right, Melissa?
Yeah, well, it's a one strike policy where we kick people out. We've actually kicked people out of every blitz.
You kicked out noobs? Not noobs.
One strike. You get drunk in the house, you're out.
Yeah.
Still, you're at the house while you should be knocking. You're going. I'll get you the next flight home. I'm not going to drive you to the airport, but I'll get you an Uber. They'll be there in 30 minutes. Like they're going home, and we're very, very strict about that. I think people now that have been on our blitzes have seen how strict we are. So they're like, okay, like when we come here, we're working. Like they know that we have zero tolerance for people to slack off.
I've heard about this, and does that happen a lot? Do people go on blitzes and just like not knock?
Not really.
In Australia, we were absolutely Nazis. Like you're waking up a certain time where you're kicked out. Here's the taxi, you're gone. But I hear more.
Not Nazis. That's the wrong term.
It's more so the people that have never really knocked doors that it happens to. Like the first blitz, it was a guy that was on our roofing side, and he just like it wasn't that he wasn't knocking. He just like was setting a bad example and drinking at the house and tried to get on the roof drunk. And we were like, nope, zero. Bye-bye. Morning. And then the next 2 of these guys have never knocked doors. Like they do like online alarm sales, and like we're like, this is a knocking blitz. Like we'll cold call afterwards, or we'll warm call all these leads after the blitz. But like right now we're on the doors. Like this is where we get the data to dial, so we don't have to pay money on information. Like this is free information for us. So, they didn't work and they went home. Bye-bye. See you later. You knock no doors your first day, I'll be the first one to show you the door. But besides that, like everyone else
call ahead before they knocked?
No, they didn't want to call ahead. They were just used to selling over the phone and door to door.
Oh.
This like last blitz, these kids, it was their first time ever door knocking. They were twins from New York. Right. Huge kids. They were like 21 years old, like almost 7 feet tall. It was insane. And I'm like this big. They're like this big. So that was something else. But yeah, they'd never knocked doors. They didn't know what to expect. They knocked like 4 doors and like, yo, this sucks. We don't want to do it. And I was like, okay, bye-bye. See you later. You're on the next flight home. Sure. We don't need that rubbing off on any of the other people.
Yes, it's a cancer. It's a virus.
Yep, it's got to go.
Kayla, I want to ask you one more question before you go, and appreciate you guys being on here. This is Melissa Romiza and Kayla Mooney with Glide Solar. I want to ask you, like, obviously, not anybody can kind of get to where you are. How did you kind of get to the place where you were a teacher and you were kind of, working in the back of a restaurant to, being out there and being on social media and knocking doors and being a leader? And can you tell me kind of that progression of how, you started to where you are now, which I think is a huge growth from what I've seen, but maybe you can tell me more.
Yeah. It's really interesting when I look at it, because I actually knocked doors when I was like 12 years old.
Yes, me too. Yeah, I love that.
So I had that experience, which I thought about recently, but I'd go like cut their grass, shovel their driveways.
Yes.
Like I was a hustler from when, from a very young age. I had to go out there and make things happen. But I get into restaurants where, you probably know, Josh, where it's you're working 60, 70 hours a week, grinding. You don't sleep much. You're at the restaurant when it opens up and when you're closing it down, right? So I had that hustle, and then I got into teaching. I was like done with the restaurant industry and I went into teaching. I've always really liked teaching. I did it for 4 years. It's something that I'm really good at. So I think the hustle from the restaurant industry plus being able to teach and understand the psychology of how to explain something to somebody in many different ways until they understand it, or something that makes sense to them, correlates to why I'm so good at solar and sales. On the other hand, I think the reason that I got so good so fast was my mindset coming in, I saw Melissa on Instagram and chatted with her, asked her what she did, showed me her paycheck, the whole nine, right? I was like, okay, if you're telling me I go knock doors, I can make that money. In my mind, I was like, okay, if somebody else can do this, why would I not be able to do that, right? It's either she knows more, she works harder, or she has like more skills. And I was like, well, those are all things that I can obtain. I can work harder than this person. I can learn more. And that's how I became obsessed with it. But I also attached myself to her. Like, I was out knocking with her any chance that I could. I was shadowing her and recording her. And then I invested in myself. And I think that was a huge factor as well, because I paid for Taylor McCarthy's training and I was on there every week and I was watching Knock Stars every day before I went out, and I was listening to her, Melissa's set on the door. And I was like, there's a way to do something, whether that be like if you're in sports or you're lifting a weight, there's a way to do it. You just need to figure it out and replicate it every single time, have it be repeatable. So that's really, for me, I gained the knowledge. I worked as hard as I possibly could. And I learned from people that were here. And when I came into the industry, I didn't want to knock with anyone else. Like I had to, because Melissa's only one person and she's busy, right? But I was like, I don't want to be like people down here, so I'm not going to learn from them. I want to learn from the best. And I think that really got me to where I am now, and being able to learn from her, and I know it took you a little longer when you were with Ion to like kind of get kickstarted and to find that success. What you said, your first year, you made like what, 40 grand or something like that.
I mean, like almost 2 months to get my first sale. And it's like, Kayla had me to teach her, but like my managers where I was from, they didn't knock doors. They would like sit there and be like pictures on the doors while they're at home, like watching their basketball game. But like, I didn't have that. So I really had to figure it out on my own. And then like being able to help, like, Kayla, I remember your first day. Like I almost like remember what you were wearing. Like I remember where we knocked. I remember the houses we touched. I remember like sitting down and seeing that snake and that snake, little like I remember her first day on the doors. But I don't just like bring people in and be like, all right, peace, see you later. Like I train everybody that I bring onto the team. And like when people are being mistreated at companies, I'm like, you come here and I will personally train you. You can stay at my house. You can live with me for 2 weeks. You can see how I live and we'll do this together. Like we're in this together. I'm not just going to hand you off to a manager to take care of you. I got you.
Yeah,
and I think that the attention that I got from somebody who was doing really well and not allowing myself to learn from low producers was a huge factor, because I see a lot of people come in to the industry and they're like, oh, they come in with someone new, they have a relationship with them and they want to go knock with this guy who's brand new. And like, I wonder why I'm not getting deals. And it's like, I tell them every time, do not knock with anybody who is where you want, like who is not where you want to be. And if you want to be the best, and that's where I was like, I'm very competitive. I'm going to be the best person in this room. Right. And it's very hard with Melissa because she's the same way, but it was good because I was like, I want to be there. I need to find someone who's done it. And I would give that advice to anybody coming into the industry, is only go out with people that are where you want to be. If you want to hit 5 sales and that's your goal, go out with somebody that's doing 5 sales, not somebody that's doing 2, whether your goal be 5 or 20. But the only way you're going to be able to hit that is learn from people that have done it, or it's going to take you a very long time to learn.
Was that poster stay behind you, Melissa? The Bruce Lee one?
Do not pray for an easy life. Pray for the strength to endure a difficult one. Actually, Kayla got that one.
There you go. I love that. What's next for you guys? I'm going to end up wrap it up on this one, unless Josh has another question for you guys. What do you guys are obviously super young and have a bright future ahead. Well, what's next though? What's your couple of years or your 5-year plan? Anything you planning ahead, or are you kind of just living in the moment?
Kayla just bought her second property. She's following right in my footsteps. Just making sure making sure we're putting our money in the right places and
smart.
Growing the company, growing the team. I think that's the ultimate goal of where we're at. And I think our whole goal is to not have to knock doors in 5 years, right? So it's just making the right choices as we make it over those next 5 years to be in that position.
Did she buy the second property so you don't have to rent the third Airbnb for the next place?
No,
that one's already hers is already fully rented. So yeah, I have one property that I've house hacked. I pay no mortgage. I've got roommates. I cash flow a little bit off that. Kayla cash flows off both of her properties. Then I have another property in Utah that I cash flow. And I'd say I take almost like a loss on my other house because I use it for rep housing. But like when you look at overrides and sales and everything else, it definitely makes sense. But it's a 6-bedroom house. I've got 3 full-time tenants.
Oh yeah.
And then the other
Love
3
that.
bedrooms are used to bring recruits in from other states so they can come check us out, things like that. So it works out pretty nice. But yeah, I'd say biggest thing, at least for me, and I know Kayla tries to do the same thing, but we're just trying to make sure in 5 years we're not the ones that have to knock on the doors, and we have our investments in the right place to not have to knock doors anymore, take care of our family.
Yeah, you too, Kayla?
Yeah, it kind of full circle goes back to the first question of like, why did I want to be a closer? It's funny.
Yeah.
But ultimately, like this, for me, yeah, I don't want to be in solar forever. That's not my goal. I don't want to knock on doors forever, right? And using this as, you know, the ability to hit my goals, which is to have the financial freedom, to have time freedom, because I want to travel. Like that's what I like to do. And so ultimately, if I can go out and invest into the market, invest in real estate, have some higher level risks and that safety net for some lower, like that's where my mind is really making the best choice with the money that I make, because we can come in and make money. That's great.
Yep.
That's awesome. But it's not about the money. It's what you do with it. And ultimately time is money to me. And so using this as like a vehicle to be able to, in 10 years, like I would love to retire early. That's my ultimate goal. And that's why I do what I do. And that's why I wanted to move into closing, because that's going to get me to where I want to be faster. But yeah, I've done real estate because obviously that's one of the best places to put your money. And the mindset that I have when I get a check, a lot of people get like, you know, people haven't gotten a $5,000-$10,000 check. A lot of people, when they get it, their first thing is like, what am I going to go buy? What am I going to go do? I'm going to go celebrate. Like mine's like, where can I put this to invest it? Where's the smartest place to put this right now? And I'm going to deploy that. Like I don't have a lot of money in my account because they're all in investments. And that's where it's going to just let compounding do its job and, you know, just learn. And I think that's been one of the biggest, most impactful things from solar is learning to invest, you know, because that's where it's going to take me in 10 years where I don't have to knock on doors.
I love that. I think you guys are saying is like right on point. Anybody listening, I'm going to help these guys out with if you're going to work anywhere, work with these guys, you'll learn a lot. So if anybody wants to work with Melissa Romiza and Kayla Mooney in Colorado with Glide Solar, how can they reach out to you guys? What should they do? Message you on Instagram, email you, or just hit you up?
Instagram, I've never not answered a DM unless you're trying to sell me leads. So don't try to sell me leads, but my Instagram name is the same as my first and last name right here. So it's just Melissa Romiza. You can find me on social media that way.
And Kayla?
Yeah, social media is the best for me too.
Instagram is your name?
You know, I'm gonna look that up right now.
It's always good to know your Instagram handle, so yet on occasions like this, you can let people know where to find you. You know, it's like your phone number.
Right, we're learning. This is a learning process.
Yeah.
It's Kayla with 2 A's _ Mooney.
There you go. We'll post it in the broadcast.
Thanks.
Really appreciate you guys getting on the SolarPulse podcast with Josh and Joe. Josh, anything else?
All good. Thanks for coming on, guys.
Thanks
appreciate
for
you guys.
Thanks.
This has been awesome.
All right.